Good morning. Welcome to the 13th Annual Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation Conference. This is our 13th. So for us, that's a lucky number. I am Michael Gonzalez, Vice Chair of the Foundation. Pleased to have that you chose to attend and join us today. The Foundation has planned an exciting and informative conference, and by the end of the day, I know you'll agree that you learned a lot, you helped celebrate Latino achievements, and that you'll be energized to work towards the future as it relates to the Illinois Latino community. So I'd like to actually to start because the conference is a culmination of a lot of planning. And we have a lot of volunteers that help put this together. So I want to mention those right up front. And as you see them, just say thanks. So a couple things I wanted to do is, and you'll see this young lady, every year we have an intern that helps us in the planning. And we've had some fairly decent people that we've helped develop their careers. This year, it's Araceli Medrano, so please give her a round of applause. Make sure you say hello to her. Keep her busy all day. We also have the center. They're our conference planner. That's headed up by Ron Perlman. And I've gotten to meet some very cool people that have really shown their passion as they help put the project together. Helen Gates, Janet and Jim Zabel. Janet comes first. That's a husband-wife team, and they're all energetic. I'll mention a few more. Karen Edmondson, Nina Boginski, Lisa Groff. Rod is a technical guy, Rod Gareton. Actually, I'm lucky because I actually have my sisters, Sally and Pat, helping. I really want to do the shout out to Sally. Sally has really been integrally involved over the last months, and she's on the front lines with me. So thank you, Sally. One thing I'll mention for the scholarship recipients that are already in the room, I just want to give you a reminder to please report to the front desk, the registration desk at about 5 minutes to 11. So no matter where you're at, you might be in a workshop, but please join us at about 5 minutes to 11 because we have a little presentation we want to make to the scholarship recipients before the luncheon. So now at this time, I would like to introduce you a little more formally to our co-chairs, Senator Iris Martinez and Representative Lisa Hernandez. Join us. They're our co-chairs, our fearless leaders, and they'll take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. Buenos dias. All right, we're awake. All right, some more coffee in the back. Thank you, Michael. On behalf of all the members of the Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation, welcome to our 13th annual conference. In 2002, Latino members of the Illinois legislature, as well as other leaders in our community, convened to create an organization with three main purposes: to develop through the Illinois Latino Public Policy Institute a new generation of informed, skilled, and effective Latino leaders who will help shape public policy. Also to provide college scholarships for outstanding Latino men and women who are pursuing their educational goals. And lastly, to empower Illinois Latinos by increasing understanding of and access to federal, state, and community programs in such areas as employment, immigration, health and human services, education, business, and development of civic leader. As we discovered today, our annual conference helps them realize all of those three purposes to the ILCF. As you know, and I know that many have not been informed, but I want to just share something that both Representative Hernandez and I are doing. The Latino Caucus Foundation has been providing scholarships to young people for almost 13 years. We know that access to financial aid is critical to Latino students being able to enroll in college, stay in school, and exit with a degree. And while we have taken steps to provide undocumented students with greater access to post-secondary education, Illinois has a long way to go. That is why I am working with Representative Lisa Hernandez and other members of the Latino Caucus to pass the Student Access Bill next year. The legislation, thank you. The legislation would allow four-year public universities to provide scholarships and tuition assistance to undocumented students on a very competitive basis. We are proud to have support of the University of Illinois President Timothy Killen and others in higher education for this initiative. According to, where are you? Right there, there they are, right here. Thank you. According to the administrators at UIC, approximately 1,500 students across all of the four-year public universities will become eligible to compete for financial, and when we pass legislation, which I know we're going to work very hard to get this passed this year. The state has already invested considerable resources in the primary and secondary education of undocumented students. Providing access to financial aid will help students complete their degree, enter the workforce, and ensure Illinois secures a return on its investment. Together, we're going to get this done. Again, thank you for your participation today. I hope you really enjoyed what we've put together. I want to thank Ron Perlman, the Resource Center, and all the volunteers, Araceli, Sylvia, everyone that's been involved, Dr. Lele Suleiman, who's also here. You know, there's a lot of work that is put into this conference, and I know that it goes a long way, and it shows when we have this crowd continue to grow and grow every year, which really indicates that we're doing something right and that we're making sure that you have access to all the resources available, and that's what we are here to do. The Latino Caucus and the Foundation work hand in hand to assure that this conference is successful and that we continue to grow as our population continues to grow. Muchas gracias, and I leave you with my co-chairman, Representative Lisa Hernandez.
Thank you, Senator. I first want to start off, it is a sight to see. I just want you, if you can't, just stand up and see. It's a sea of people here, and this just is an indicator of the volume of this particular population, what we stand for, and where we are at right now. It is a sight to see. I'm very grateful and very honored that I'm here representing all of you. I just want to start by thanking you for being here today. I would like to take this opportunity to emphasize the goal of this conference. Today, it's not just to address serious issues of importance to Latinos and to explore the ways that digital technology can empower our daily lives, but it is also a celebration of the creativity, aspirations, and successes of our Illinois Latino community. For example, throughout the day, exceptional Latino artists who are representative of creativity in our communities will be displaying their work, so please take a look outside of what they have displayed. At noon, we will recognize several people who have done exemplary work on behalf of the Latino community over the years. We will also enjoy our luncheon keynote speaker, Giselle Fernandez, and we will honor 28 now, outstanding college students who will receive the Illinois Legislative Latino Conference Foundation College Scholarships. I also, before I go on, want to emphasize on this access bill. It's really crucial. We want to emphasize it at this conference. Why? Because it does aim at particularly the undocumented students. We've been successful with the in-state tuition. Successful. Many of our students have the ability to continue their education because of that in-state tuition. That was an extreme success. However, this also allows for further funding so that our students can continue their education. We did try at the beginning of the year with the inclusion of the MAP grants, but it did not go well. It did go as far as passing the committee within the House. We were able to pass it out of the committee, but once it went on the floor, There were a lot of concerns among my colleagues, so we decided to remove the MAP grant, but it allows now universities to open up their scholarships and in a competitive way to the students. I think we're going to do well, and I have to give a shout out to these students. They did an amazing job. Just about a couple of weeks ago, kicking off the Access Bill. Please applaud. Many of these kids are here today. And they're going to be scouting out for our colleagues, our legislators, who will be here throughout the day. So the Access Bill, I think we're going to really kick it out of the ballpark. Finally, you are all invited to a reception at the end of the day when we hope to have an opportunity to meet and talk with you in a casual setting. It's always fun. It is now my great honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Marco Torres, Director of Story with the Digital Promise. His experience is wide-ranging, particularly in the field of education. He has taught at the high school level, has been an education technology director and media coach, and is a gifted professional filmmaker and photographer, all enhancing his critical role as a leader in professional learning for teachers, leaders, and students both in Los Angeles and across the nation. Please welcome Marco Torres as our opening keynote speaker for the 2015 Illinois Legislative Latino Conference Foundation, Caucus Foundation Conference.
Thank you for being here.
Welcome them, please.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, thank you very much. Wow, how exciting. All right. First of all, buenos dias. My name is Marco Antonio Torres. I can keep going if you guys want me to with my name, but I'll leave it right there. I actually come from a very global setting. My dad is from Londres. Actually, it's a rancho near Pegueros called Londres in Jalisco. And my mom is lived near Palestina, which was a pharmacy that was right underneath where my mom lived in Tepa. So I come from a little bit of background about myself, is I taught at San Fernando High School for 11 years. And San Fernando High School actually at one point was the largest school in the country with 5,400 kids and 385 teachers. And some of the interesting statistics there is you could imagine at a school that size what the data would tell you about a school that size. We had one of the, I'll tell you this percentage, this fact. At one point, we had about 1,800 ninth graders, but we were only graduating about 400 kids. This is a school where almost everyone was from Guajalmich, Guanajuato, Jalisco, Michoacan, all right? Of all the kids. We had one white kid in school. Her name was Amanda, and she played in a mariachi band, so she was like an honorary Mexican, all right? So this is my reality. So I knew that as a teacher, I had to leverage the skills that I had as a filmmaker, as a photographer, and as an engineer, and someone who also worked in politics to kind of leverage all that so that we can tell a more efficient story. Because unfortunately, sometimes data doesn't tell our story. So we have to kind of think about certain things. And one of the challenges that I always had as a teacher is, and I've recently, and I work a lot with school districts, you know, I'm amazed at the tyranny of just tell them what to do, how to do it, and when it's due. As opposed to what if, or why not, or why. And those are actually mostly like the travieso questions, right? Remember that? But I think about how important that is, okay? We're living in a very interesting time you see what technology can do is it provides us a lot of new opportunities. I just recently read, and I highly recommend that you guys read it or listen to it, Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath. And just in a premise, people have the story all wrong. David was not the underdog. He's the underdog because you're assuming the rules are he's supposed to fight this big guy. What you don't really realize is David had technology. He had a sling and he had a big target. Why do you think I, David, am a disadvantage? Because this big target was easy. The shepherds back in the day, they had these slings that they would shoot these ballast rocks from 50 yards away at about 150 miles an hour. They could take the head out of a wolf. So all of a sudden this guy's like, I'll take you on. Here's 2 guys. Take me down the hill so I can fight this little shepherd with a stick and a sling. Guy's like, this is easy. Palo. That's it. Miller time. I love this story because I think that education and learning are 2 different things. I learned this from a student years ago. I love to learn, except school is getting in the way now. Something to think about. So I've been thinking about like a lot of really key words. I worked at Apple for a long time. And one of the things that I love about words, because I learned English, so I became very aware of words. You know, I love this word here because misfit, as opposed to fit, try to fit in. Misfit is something that doesn't fit in. If we think about now the importance of people who make change, and I think it's a good challenge for the high school kids that are here in the worlds of education, health, science. Think about the importance of asking questions that are different. As a storyteller, I love doing stories about people who are misfits. And recently I just did one on like Roy Choi. Here's this Korean immigrant from Los Angeles who started this new idea called food trucks. It's not a new idea, is it? But what he did is he leveraged social media so that people can come to wherever he is. Did he change food industry? Think about the impact that food trucks have had, even on the impact on restaurants, the casual dining and so forth. Uber is another example. Instead of the data on how fast you can get people to and from, is how can I provide you an experience? And then that's what I'm measured with. Has that changed how people perceive that particular industry? So some things to think about. At a recent conference, someone posted this quote, and I thought it was a really good quote. It's a new question I think we need to be asking, because every time we would ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? When in reality, this is a much better challenge. Don't ask kids what they want to be when they grow up. Instead, ask them what problem do they want to solve. This changes the conversation from who do I want to work for, tell me what to do, how to do it, and when it's due, to what do I need to learn to be able to do that. How many of you have had someone in your family that's been struck by cancer? It showed up in my house. And I was working with these little kids in Hawaii, and one of the kids said, you know, we could cure cancer, Mr. Torres, if learning was more fun. And you know, I love when I work with kids, because man, I'll tell you, for the 5.5-hour plane trip back, I thought about that. Think about the impact of what it would have if just learning was a more fun experience. So as a filmmaker, again in education, one of the things that I focused on years ago is I went out to look for students that are not really good students, but are great learners. Listen to that challenge there. A good student has data. It's people who figured out knowing. Because think about it, up until today, the only thing that we measure in schools is what you know, not how you learn. What is the evidence that shows that you're being an effective learner? Because how many of you in your family have a good student in your family, but probably are not a really good learner? Or how many of you, on the opposite, have a great learner who's not a good student? So I went out and found, and this one in particular I want to show you because this is Kayvon Beckpour, and I went to interview him. And I'm going to just show a little video so you can see his little story.
This is the story of how a few kids who've been best friends since kindergarten took the traditional story of becoming successful by going to high school, going to college, and getting a job, and sped it up. And I mean really sped it up. Being a filmmaker is a bit like being a developer, right? You're trying to solve an issue and tell a story. In high school, I was part of the film program, and one of the things we focused on doing in the program is telling a story using film. I think it's a more intuitive way of learning, really, of having an understanding of what you're trying to solve, and then communicating that to a large group of people, whether it's in the form of an iPhone application or in the form of a digital story.
My name is Aaron Wasserman. Welcome to San Francisco. So for me, it wasn't just studying the curriculum, applying it to a test, writing an essay. It was actually trying to figure out how that connected to the real world as we knew it.
That experience of doing something for the sake of the process was fundamentally really important in sort of giving me the toolkit for a lot of the things that I did at college and a lot of things that we're doing now at Blackboard and what we did at Torres.
And that was really, really powerful because, you know, it actually made all those hours, all those late nights, all those all-nighters bearable. Because I was really, really, in the end, proud of what we were doing. And you'll see it's a really, really pristine, quiet office.
The reason we started this entire process is because we as students identified a problem. And we lived that problem. We experienced that inefficiency, and we wanted to solve it.
One of the things people forget is that most of us, are still active students in school, just trying to get our degrees and finish. But our parents are literally just concerned with going to the graduation ceremony in June.
Yo, so just so you know, we've got to order a cap and gown by the end of the week.
Is there like a barely graduate cap in the end? Here I am, a 21-year-old kid who's still in college, and I'm making hiring decisions based on people who are sometimes twice my age. The reason we keep going is because we love what we do. And if we didn't love what we do, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't have sold our company, we wouldn't have made a product that other schools want and that students want. Mom, Dad, are you proud of me now?
Kayvon, when he got to Stanford, he didn't know how to get around school. He was the first person in his family to go to college and didn't know all the different components there were. So he decided with a bunch of his friends, what if we wrote an app for like students like, how do I get on the bus? What teachers should I take? What classes should I go to? What washing machine is available? Where are the meters that are not working on the street? And they made this app called iStanford. And anyhow, they decided to just make it available for students there. It became so popular, within 3 months it was sold. The company was sold for $4 million. No, it gets better. They created the platform for other universities to create off of this. Then that was sold to Blackboard Mobile for $12 million. This is from high school through the junior year. So after they sold to Blackboard Mobile, all these guys left to start another little company. Why? It wasn't because of the money. It was the intrinsic motivation of figuring stuff out. Man, think about the world we can change if you infect kids, if you infect your constituents with wanting to figure it out. Kayvon started this idea. Why don't I have this live? He was watching the news, and he said, you know what? We don't get all the news. What if we empowered people to have their own cameras and make live feeds? And so he created this little company called Periscope. And if you know about Periscope, look it up. They just sold to Twitter from some ridiculous amount of money. He's not even 23. What I love about that is the ability to ask new types of questions. You know, I always tell teachers, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. Do you guys remember the Rubik's Cube? Remember in the 80s when we were babies? Okay. If you ever wanted to show someone who was intelligent, just put a Rubik's Cube in their hand. Remember that? Ooh, ahí viene tu smart primo with his Rubik's Cube. Right? How many of you were like me that got so frustrated you just put it in hot water, you took all the stickers out and No? Just me? Oh, there you are. How many of you remember the first time someone figured it out? Remember how amazing that was? I used to get dates from girls because I told them I knew someone who figured out the Rubik's Cube. But what's fascinating is how big was your world back then? It's little. How big is your world now? I got to show you this app because to me this is a good kind of a way of understanding of what schools are. today, because that was the ultimate goal, is to try to figure out hard things. But then hard things is still a tell me what. It's the Rubik's Cube ultimately, for all my math people here, it's still an algorithm. So it's still something that's still based on what, how, and when. And this is from a kid in Portland.
Here's the cube I'm going to solve. Using the Cube Cheater app, I've already input 5 of the faces. The only one left is the blue face. So to do that, I'll just take a picture of it. So when you take a picture, it'll automatically recognize the cube and get all the colors. And looks like it worked. So we'll just go to solve. Solve the cube. 6 moves. So the first one is white face clockwise. Yellow face counterclockwise. Green face 180 degrees. Red face counterclockwise. White face clockwise. And then it's obvious that blue face 180. And cube is solved. And the app is called Cube Cheater.
Cube Cheater. I love this review. Having a young adult figure out the math needed to solve the cube in seconds is amazing. Then making an iPhone application for the rest of us to impress our bosses. Because the other one is he solved a knowing issue. This is why knowing is not enough anymore. It's what you do with the knowing that's going to be important. Super important. So, I mean, one of the things that I always tell people is think about the world that we can create now when we can build a studio stage in a community. A studio to find your voice, find a way that makes sense to you, a stage to share, and a community to collaborate with. Think about what that looks like. And think about now how available it is in the pocket. How many of you have figured something out because of YouTube? Raise your hands. All right, now raise your hands if you figured out something strange with YouTube. There, look at you, it's a lot of you. So I worked with a teacher who told me that she figured out how to bring a hamster from the dead using a turkey baster. So I tell teachers, you really want to ask me how do I make a slide on the presentation? If it's a how kind of a question, I ask my watch. My son goes, why does my teacher think I'm gifted and talented when I just have an iPad? Stop asking me questions I can look up, because if that's what a genius is, then every kid should have an iPad. So one of the things that I want to kind of talk to you about is just this importance of this studio stage community. Years ago, I was speaking to a legislature in Texas, probably a group like yours. And one of the things that was fascinating is they really wanted to understand the concept of a social media. And so for me, I always like to kind of find examples of what social media looks like when students leverage it. This is fun too. He's a Korean kid, and he basically made this little video of him playing guitar in his... I'll play a couple seconds of it. He plied it. So probably not the version Pachelbel had in mind, but this kid did this, right? But what fascinated me was then looking at other kids that were basically performing that same song. And I know that those of you in the way far back can't see. But you can see that these numbers, it's been viewed 27 million times. That one's been viewed 1 million times. So not only was this kid being viewed all these times, but other kids. And guess what other kids were doing with this video? They were learning how to play it. Now, never does Fun 2 show, hey, step 1, step 2, step 3. But what he does is imposes this challenge without ever even looking up. Now, is this a kid that's very brass and very proud of himself, or is probably a shy kid? Shy kid. And so I started to kind of track this a little bit more. And then I started to see how many kids started to do this. So I went online and I found hundreds of kids from all over the world playing this song. So you could see here a collection of kids from everywhere playing the song. You know what amazes me is that while I was doing this, a lot of teachers say, Marco, you know kids these days, they're disconnected from reality. They really don't want to learn anymore. And I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting. Because two things are interesting here. Number one, it's content that normally you wouldn't expect a 16-year-old to a 19-year-old. Classical music. I mean, I know it's a silly stereotype, but I'm addressing a concern here. So number one, Pachelbel. And number two, do you think that song is easy to play? So two things there fascinate me. So as an education person, I started to realize what was fascinating is I don't care. What I found online was this. Hey, world, I don't care if you know how to play guitar or not. You too can learn how to play this song in whatever way you feel is best for you. Whether you want to play it on a synthesizer, a bass, whether you want to play it on the drums, on a toy piano, on a regular piano. You also have a high school orchestra who also plays this song. And you also have the song not only broken down in half speed, but quarter speed. So these are kids saying to the world, if you want to learn, there's a way. Do you think that they met on Wednesday after a professional development meeting to have this conversation? If you want to learn, there's a way. What next happened blew my mind. There was this outpouring request of Fun 2 to do another song. Do you think they asked him, but this time can you make it simple? You think he got those requests? No, they wanted it to be what? Harder. The other thing too was interesting is they also chose definitely hard. You're going to see this, what happened. So here is what he then did. The moment of suspense. Here it goes. Pretty amazing, right? By the way, somebody told me that the reason there's 2 guitars is because Vivaldi wrote it for 2 cellos. And just to make sure that you know, he wore 2 different hats. So you can see that he wasn't just doing it the same way. But what fascinated me was take a look at the numbers. When I started to follow this project, by the way, this is research in a span of 1 week. From 37 million to 41 million. And then by the time he posted that last one, he had already hit 45 million. To me, that fascinates me because to me, it's incredible. And look, it's 65 million. It's amazing because there's evidence of a studio stage in the community. Evidence in the ability to create, celebrate, learn, and share. Think about all of your professions. Think about any of the challenges that you have. Is there a solution there? And to get the solution there, what are the new kinds of questions that we need to be asking to get us there? And more importantly, the value of love. We forget how important this particular concept is to help us get to that point. And just to kind of wrap up here, I want to just kind of show you just a quick here, because I always hear this a lot, and I heard this yesterday. Like, Mr. Torres, have you seen kids today? They're really good with technology. And I'm like, yeah, because they were born in it. If you go to Italy and you see a 4-year-old, they're going to speak Italian. If you go to Italy and, as an adult, you're going to struggle speaking Italian. It's because it's their language. And it's fascinating for me because think about, they always say, oh, we got to get kids ready for the 21st century. I'm like, brother, it's 15 years in. It's like we've lost the whole crop already. So why are we still asking that? So what has happened in 15 years? Well, here's a quick little journey. The child was born in 1995. By the time they were 3 years old, Google was around. By the time they were 5, the iPod came out. By the time they were 9, Facebook was around. By the time they were 11, Twitter is out. By the time they're 12, the iPhone is out. By the time they're 13, you could actually customize and buy whatever apps you need to help you solve problems. And then by the time you were 15, the iPad's out. And so I want you guys to think about this for a second. How much has this changed the world? How much has this changed entertainment, medicine, health? But how much has this changed our classrooms? It's a good question to have with a nice Pinot Noir to kind of think through. Meet the kid. This is a kid I interviewed a couple years ago from Schaumburg.
When did you become an expert?
I'll leave you with this. Who are these disconnected kids? Disconnected from reality, but connected to their devices. This was actually a study done by a couple of scientists that looked at brain activity from students over 7 days. And if you want to kind of take a look at the data, you could see that when there was more activity, when there was less activity. So here, let me zoom in here. It was during homework when there was the most amount of brain activity. Why would that be? Are they multitasking or are they just doing homework? Multitasking. Take a look when their brain has the least amount of evidence. During class. And the teacher says, wow, that explains why they sleep. And I said, in this case, you should let them sleep because during sleep, there's a lot more brain activity. As a social studies teacher, it's my last thing. This is a Pony Express. We all know about it really well. I love these stories. I love the truffles in the story. Anywhere in the world, everyone knows about the Pony Express, which is interesting because it did not last long. It lasted 11 months, and it was a business failure because the goal was to get a test score, to get from Missouri to Sacramento in less than 12 days. That was the challenge. And in order for them to do that, they had certain requirements. You had to be young, skinny, wiry, not over 18, must be expert riders, willing to risk death daily, orphans preferred. That's how we adjust it, because the only way that we're going to get from point A to point B, the only way we're going to reach that test score, the only way we're going to get to that point is if we add all these different components to this, but without asking the right question. Now, during that time, this was out. However, nobody in the Pony Express world was interested in this because no one was going to believe Wikipedia. No one was going to believe information from a device. They want to see the handwritten, the stamp of approval. And in 1865, something very bad happened. In 1865, when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, they got on that horse and they rode, and they did it in 7 days. Got to Sacramento. But by the time they got to Sacramento, people already knew that Abraham Lincoln had died, had been assassinated. The reason why they chose this route, because that's where the telegraph lines were going through. So the writers would use the telegraph lines to use it to guide to get them to Sacramento. I love this picture here because here's this guy who's saying, "I'm faster than you." These guys are saying, "Que menso." So which one are you? That's a good question for us, hopefully, as we think about our role as champions of change for our community. Are you trying to perfect something that is not the right direction, or are we pausing and getting enough reflection and thinking through what the things that we need to do? So just something to think about for all of you. And with that, this is it.
There are two main reasons why I need to get better.
It's
Better at
my
what I
end.
do. There are two main reasons why that I must be a better person, a better role model, and a better teacher. On May 23rd, 2004, the sun rose and shined on my soul. It warmed me away from my body, my heart, and my soul. Just thinking of him now warms me up. Let me move on. 27 months later, soil, and now a river. A river to reflect himself onto. A river to heat up, to light up, and to make sparkle. Now that I have my sun and my river to look at, to feel, to smell, to hear, to love, and to experience, I have two reasons, two good reasons. Two important reasons to be better, way better.
Muchas gracias. Con ganas. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you very much, Marcos. What a presentation. How about another round of applause? So I'll have to admit, I'm an engineer, and I remember those days of the Rubik's Cube. We never pulled the labels off or the decals off, but we did pry the thing apart and put it back together. So that's how I figured it out. And I like the theme about figuring stuff out because I think that's what it's about. It's about learning, and I think sometimes we are stymied in our educational systems from time to time. Okay, a couple things. Our concurrent sessions begin at 10:15. You have your program. The main areas are education, K through 12, and post-secondary, immigration, economic and business development, health and wellness, housing and financial services. So there's 5 areas. That's actually the reason why we have you here, so that you'll attend those and participate interactively. So please, when we're done here, make your way over to those sessions. You'll be getting some support and some help and some directions from our volunteers. Also, the artist program has already been mentioned. So please do visit with them. We also have a number of exhibitor tables that we'd like you to stop by. And one in particular, one of my good friends, David Cordova at St. Augustine, wanted me to mention they have a program promotion, $10,000 scholarship. So you'll want to visit that one. Again, our focus is on our panel discussions, and we'll see you in a couple hours here for the luncheon, right around 12 noon. And again, one last reminder for the recipients. And while we're on the recipients, I might as well mention that we had a number of important people that affected you today, and those were the readers, the ones that reviewed those scholarship applications. And so I'd like to read their names. Representative Will Gazzardi, former Representative Tony Barrios, Representative Lisa Hernandez, our co-chair, Ron Perlman, Raul Reyes, Peter Vina, Leila Suleiman Gonzalez, Leticia Gonzalez, and yours truly, Michael Gonzalez. So we are to be thanked, I guess, for reviewing so many. We had a record number of applications, so we know that this is important to you, and we appreciate your credentials that you're sending to us. Made it very difficult for us to make the selections, but keep that up, and we'll look forward to another batch next year. So I send you now all out of this room to the concurrent workshops, and have a great day. Make sure throughout the day that you take advantage of the social media. So like us on Facebook, and our hashtag is hashtag ILLCF2015. So that's ILLCF 2015. So throughout the day, please post stuff on there. Thank you. We'll see you a little later.